Gearheads, thanks for tuning in. On this episode of Dance Garage, we're going to be looking at the Yukon mirrors, which fold in.
But this one didn't fold in.
I think that's what he has to fix. Hey Dan,
run that intro!
Hey Gearheads, thanks for tuning in. As you can see, and from the intro, we have power folding mirrors here, but only this one works, that one does not. I think somebody may have bumped it at one point and it either got off track or just stripped the gears. So there's a couple of things you can do to test if your system is not working correctly either. This is the keypad I have. If yours looks like mine, then you should have the same system. Obviously there's a lot of vehicles these were in. So if neither of your mirrors are working, there may be an option in your info settings on your computer and your truck to change them to make them power fold. There's also an option to have the mirror tilt down when you hit reverse and other things that you can set that way. Now, if one of yours is working and one is not like mine, there's basically two things. If you don't hear the motor at all, it could be the motor. Some of these things are serviceable, not by the dealership, of course, you have to buy the whole thing. But you can buy motors, and then there's gears that you can buy also. Now mine, I do hear the motor, but it's not folding. So I know the motor works, the switch works, but it's not folding. So we have two options. We can try resetting it, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Or we can take it apart and try to replace the gear that I think is stripped. So how do you reset it? Well, the manual says you open and close them a bunch of times and see if it gets back on track. So we'll try that first. So you can hear the motor, but it's not moving. So that basically means the motor is spinning, but it's not hitting the gear that the mirror is attached to. So it could be out of place, or it could be broken. So obviously doing this a couple times is not going to do anything, so let's go ahead and look at step 2. Alright, so the first thing I got to do is just pull this off. Pry tools. Never want to mess up the paint on these things. Usually they just come right off, so let's see how well that works. Point the ends. Oh, that didn't do it. There we go. So that's that. And if you have a puddle light, this is where you want to unplug that. You can usually just do a quarter turn twist, and that's good for that. We'll go ahead and put this aside. Now we are going to disconnect all these wires, because once we get this taken off, it's going to slide up and these wires have to slide down. So best to take a picture of where these wires go. If they're like this for the defroster on the mirror, if it's not decoded which is which, then it usually doesn't matter. And of course you want to make sure you're very careful when you're pulling these off, because you don't want to break anything, or else you'll be replacing more than you want to replace. So I'm going to go ahead and grab something to put pressure on this, like this, and just kind of hold it against it while I kind of rock it back and forth. Actually, it looks like it's underneath, so I'm going to hold it there. And we'll just kind of rock that back and forth, and it should come off. Now yours may come off easier, or it may be harder. Since it's electronic, I really don't want to be spraying anything on it. But anyway, I'll pull these off and I'll come back. There we go. Alright, a little bit more pressure than I was putting initially on it, but I was trying to be careful. So here's the motor in here. That's what these wires are for. So I'll have to check those in a minute. This actually goes, these go down to the mirror. Alright, got one. So now it seems like it will come off. Okay. So the way I did that is I just took a flathead right in here and kind of twisted it to pry it up. This was the only one that was accessible from the back. But now that we have it off, we can see your defroster is here. And this is the turn signal light. Obviously, if you don't have one or both of these, you're not going to have that plugged. So don't worry about it. This looks like it just unplugs. And this is keyed. Always when you unplug something, make sure it can only go in one way. That way you're not screwing it up. So now with this off, we're going to go ahead and bring it inside and clean it up. Now this piece is next. And as you can see, it's got all those circle holes in it. Well, there's 4 T10 Torx in 4 of those circles. So we got to unscrew them. And you can see how loose this is on the motor. So that's what we're hoping to fix. And we're going to take this circle sucker off and hopefully not lose these screws and then move on. And this is basically your motor for your pan and tilt for your camera operators out there, or your up and down, left and right for you non-camera operators. You want to check these screws to make sure they're all the same and they don't have to go in any particular place, which they look like they're all the same. Once I get this top one out, yep, they're all the same. So we'll go ahead and put those aside. And this just has the one plug here on the bottom, which probably has a little push tab, and we can disconnect it. All right, and that's ready to go. So it does have these tangs, so it kind of slides that way and then pops in. So pop it out, slide it over. All right, so now we're looking at popping these 3 guys out this way. I'm just going to take a drift punch. And they'll go flying. There's 3 of these. I should learn by now. Nope. Oh look, I caught one. Alright, so once those 3 are knocked out, this wire, the one of these plugs, goes through here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of this so I remember how to feed it back in. The rest of them are self-explanatory, and then we have the 2 here for the motor, which these just pull out, I believe. These should just be able to pry off of the motor, and that's that. So now we'll pull this out of here. Now we have all the wires free, and we'll just lift this up and this will come right off. Make sure you're not pinching any of these wires or messing up any of these plugs. Alright, put this aside. So we have 4 screws here. These are T20. So we're going to go ahead and loosen these up, and we should be able to take this motor off, and we'll bring it into the workbench and disassemble it and see what's going on and hopefully fix it. Or you can just replace this motor. There are some online, of course not from the dealership. You have to get them from third-party manufacturers overseas somewhere, and who knows what you're getting. So we'll see. Once those 4 are out, same thing. This will just pop up, and you just got to watch how you feed these wires through. Make sure nothing is getting broken or stressed. Might be better to do these kind of one at a time. I think that's how they probably go in. Again, just be careful you don't break any of these or screw anything up. Should probably unplug this guy and get this guy unplugged because it'll come through better. Actually, with everybody else out, it'll fit right through. So feed everything through here, and we'll go ahead and bring this motor inside and see what it looks like. So you can see I have everything lined up the way it came apart. I'm going to clean all these before we put it back together. So I'm going to put this in the vise, and then we're going to pull this off or pry it off, and that's going to kind of show us what we're getting into here, and hopefully be something we can fix. But we need it to be held tight before we can start. And I'm just going to try and gently pry this up. You can see it's got some tangs on it. I don't know that this will work because it's just moving back and forth. Maybe I can get in here and pry it off this way. Alright, so what I'm trying to do is separate this. You can see how much I bent this one out and got this one out a little bit, because it does have these little divots here that are holding it in, so you really got to separate them to get it off of this. So it doesn't feel like it's even loosening up, but this one is still in. This one's over here, so got to knock that out a little bit and then see if we can get this off. Look at that. At least it's moving now. I'll try to do this without hurting my fingers. It pops down and then comes back up. Stay down. Maybe we'll have to do the kind of the double pry method. Come on. Oh, I heard a snap. That's got to be good news, right? Alright, I think that is good news. So that's that side anyway. So it's still not released from this side. So we either keep going with this side or try to get that side up. But it was so hard to get this side, I think we'll just lock that in there. Maybe just try to tap this off the rest of the way. The double pry method is probably working better at this point. Hey, there we go. And then pick that up. Alright, so this does just come off of there. You just have to pry it pretty harshly. And now we have our motor. And it's got a little cap on here, so that's just a cap that does nothing other than sit there. Put that the right way on that, and then here's our motor with our gear, and then down in there is the worm gear. So we'll get to that next, but first we want to inspect this and make sure it looks okay, which this is brass, so this does look okay. Now the motor goes down in here, and there's a little gear that's in there like this, and I'm hoping that's what's broken, because that's what I bought, because this is literally the only thing you can buy for these things online. Of course, not from the manufacturer. They want to sell you the entire motor, the entire mirror. They don't even sell the motor. You can buy the motor separately too, but we know our motor is good, hopefully. So this has a spring, so we have to kind of depress it, twist it, and then it'll pop off. This will pop off, this will pop off, and we'll be to where we need to be. So let's do that. The easiest way to do this is get a socket that fits over that, and compress it in your vise just enough to release it, and then we're going to rotate that a little bit with some pliers. Let's see if that did anything. Oh, we're real close. Look at where the tab is. So a little bit more on this and we'll be good. So I'm going to put this in here and we're just going to use the wrench, and this spring should go flying. Hopefully not though. But what we're going to do is we're going to be smart and put on a glove. And I just have to go a little bit this way. Alright, so we're just going to grab it. And there we go. Safety. And not necessarily first, but you know. So we're going to lay this down to make sure we have everything in the right order. And then we have this. Move some gloves. And then there's a cup in here. And then there's another piece in here that needs to be dialed at the right angle to come out. Maybe not. And if you look over here, can you see that? So I believe this is that gear I bought. You can see this is metal, it looks like this is plastic, and it does look like there's some parts, and that's not right. So as soon as we figure out how to get this off of here, we'll be in good shape. Maybe it only comes off one way. Who knows? Well, this is encapsulated in here, so I believe this black piece needs to come off of this metal piece. So that's what we need to figure out, I think. This like comes up and then stops. So we need to get this piece off. So I'm thinking that just pries up. I don't know, let's take a look. Look at that, that's just prying up nice and easy. Like maybe if I take a screwdriver in here and work this around, it'll pop off. Alright, so might have lost a little footage there, it was out of focus, but I'm just prying this black piece up, and it is slowly coming up from this other piece, and this, there we go. And that is it, so that's where that piece goes, and this gear was destroyed. So that's good. That means that the piece I bought will fix it. Question is, how do we get this in here? Because it looks like this old piece is in these little bearing sliders, so I guess let me get reset here and maybe we can pry this up out of here nice and gentle like. Yeah, that works. Just do the one side. We'll slide this side out, leave that little bearing in there, so it'll basically, bearing comes off this way. It'll go on this side, this will go in here, and this will pop down in here. And then I don't think we need anything else from here because that's part of that. Alright, so make sure this is spinning nice. You might want to put some lubricant on here. I would check on what type to put. Sometimes there's special lubricants. This looks like it has that yellow grease. Maybe you can use blue grease or some spray. Alright, that's what I call a win. So The only part we could get is the part we needed, and we were able to take this entire thing apart and fix it. Honestly, I don't even remember what this thing cost me. I think it was like $7 or something, maybe even less. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But I'll put a link in the description to that part if you want to buy it. There is also, like I said, you can buy the motor separate. You can buy this whole housing separate. And of course, you can buy the entire housing of the mirror assembly from your dealership for lots and lots of money. But if you're handy and you watch this video, you know how to take this apart and fix it yourself. Now, keep watching to see how to put it back together, and I have to hopefully remember how I took it apart. But first I'm going to take all these pieces and clean them, because why not? And for that we're going to use Super Clean, because they have an amazing array of products for you to use to clean anything you need to clean. We're probably going to use this one right here. Now we're going to remember how to put this thing back together. So this we're going to put to the side, because we know we've got to start with this, which won't fall out, but we're going to loosen this up. And I'm going to put this in here. We know that go away. Has to go down into here very gently. Pop that down. And then this piece has to go in. See, this is why we lay things out tighten up in order, so we know how they go back together. And then this has to get compressed and twist lock on. So this is probably honestly going to be the hardest part of getting this whole thing back together. So we're going to go back to opening this up, and we're going to put that socket back on here, and we're going to try to compress this and see if that works. Keep that all level. Keep in mind you got those 3 tangs on here, so we got to make sure those are lined up correctly. So we may have to move this around a little bit, move this around a little bit. And this is probably going to take me forever, so I'll just come back when I'm done. Alright, I got this on. What I did was I marked where one of the pieces was that I had to go through the hole, and then I marked this so I knew when I was offset enough. It looks like it's put together, so we're going to roll with that. The new piece is in there. We have no tolerance, which is good. That means it's not broken. So now... So I can't put the motor in here without it moving, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in, lock it down, put all the wires through, hook up the motor, and then I'm going to have Ashley push the button, and while the motor spins I'm going to have to push it down here, and then we're going to have to make sure that it's going all the way the right way. So first thing we need to do is push all these wires through. We'll start with the puddle light, and then the mirror motor, and we'll just kind of go through one at a time and get all these wires back through here the way they need to be. Make sure this is through. That's the motor wire, so I want to make sure that does not get damaged. And then these are the defrost wires. Got the screws in my hand, so it's a little bit harder than it should be. And then lastly is the, I don't know what that is, I forgot. A lot of electronics in these mirrors. A lot more than these Chevelles, but alright, so if we got all that through correctly and everybody's happy, then this can go on, and hopefully this will only fit on one way, and I believe that's the way it fits on. So we'll go ahead and lock these screws back down. Alright, so that's mounted now, so what I need to do is move all that stuff out of the way, and this has to be powered up and has to go in here until that slips down. Alright, that has to go the other way, so we'll make sure we got this facing the right way. So this has to face this way, so when this is together, the wires plug in that way. So I'm going to power up the truck and open the windows. Okay, so I'm going to hold the mirror out because this is in the out position, the other one's in the in position. So Ashley's over there and she's going to push the out button and hopefully I won't get shocked and this motor will spin. All right, it's spinning out, so that's good. That mirror's going out. Yes?
Yes.
All right, so when this stops, it should be in the out position. Now, the problem is I have to get this seated in there. Is that going to spin the right way? I'm not sure which way this has to go in, but if you look, this is a corkscrew, so I can't just push it down into the gear. So my goal is going to be, I'm going to have Ashley push it. Oh wait, look, it went down. Oh, maybe that'll work. Huh. All right, well let's just hold that and see what happens. Maybe it'll just fold in now that it went down. All right, push the in button. Let's see what happens. Oh. Got a little bit of pressure there. Okay, is that one all the way in?
Yep.
All right, push it back out, please. Did that one go out?
Yep.
Uh-oh, this one didn't go out. What's going on? All right, push it out again. All right, that's not good. Because it only went in. Can you close that door so I can see that mirror, please? Maybe it has too much stress on it. So let's see if we can pull this out. I know I can unplug that. I wish I could spin this, but I can't. All right. Go ahead and push it in, I guess. All right, so that worked. I think it's waiting on a sensor, so there may be a certain way it has to go in. All right, I'm going to try and hold pressure down on this and hopefully it'll work. All right, push it out. It only seems to be going in. Alright guys, so putting this thing back together, I just wanted to show you this because this kind of threw me for a loop. So on these 3 pieces on the collet, there are 2 large ones and 1 skinny one. Now the skinny one has a notch on it, but you need to make sure it's in the right place on this and see how it sits all the way down. If you don't get that, it might not sit all the way down and it won't go down. So make sure you have that situated correctly. And then of course, once you put this guy on and you have this situated correctly, you won't have any play in this. I kept having play in that. And then of course, this gear goes on. That'll situate down in there, and then this will go on top of that, and then this goes on, and then everything else. But I want to show you something else. So this is showing that on this collet piece, there's 2 tabs that stick up, which are going to be on the bottom, other opposite of where that notch is. And it's saying you need to grind these off because these are detents for the plastic gear. When it breaks, it'll stop the mirror from moving. And now that you have a brass gear, you don't need it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because it's recommending it for a brass gear, which is what we have, even though it's not from them. So keep that in mind as well. I'll put this website in the description. It's Grooven Parts, G-R-U-V-E-N parts.com. And they have a whole thing about how to fix these. They also sell parts, so pretty cool. All right, so I have it together. I put these back in here just to hold this on because once this is on for good, I got to crimp it because remember we had to pry it out. So I'm going to put this on the truck and we're going to test it out to make sure it fits. What I did do off camera when I was lining everything up, I actually used the marker to mark on the socket. You can see here, I marked the socket and I also marked the retaining ring. So that way I knew everything was together the right way or lined up the right way. And I just put it in the vise, compressed it, and then used the channel grips, channel locks, to just twist it a little bit, and it twisted to the right place. So let's go ahead and put this on, see how it looks. All right, So I gotta hold these so they don't fall out, because this one will just fall right out. So we're gonna feed all the wires through, just like we've been doing all these other times when I've tested this, because it's been on and off of here a bunch of times. The other thing is you want to make sure that the motor or the mirror base is facing the right way for the way that you have the other one. That makes sense. If the other mirror is out, you want to make sure this one is set in the out position, and this will only go on one way. So this is the out position. So I'm going to put the screws in this to hold it down, which I think are in the truck. No, they're out there. All right, so I'm gonna screw this down, we'll plug in the motor, and then we'll go ahead and turn it on and see how it looks. I'm gonna just move all these out of the way, and this is gonna plug in just like that. Then we can test it. All right, so I'm gonna push the button for the mirrors to come in, and let's hope for good news. It started to move, then stopped. Let's go back out and see what happens. Try back in. Maybe it's too tight. Maybe I need more lubrication. Out. Okay. Well, it's not working, so I guess I need to pull it back apart and see what's going on. Maybe one day I'll be a famous YouTuber and I won't have to show you my mistakes. I'll be like the professional guys and just show you everything works perfectly. Well, you know what? In the real world, it doesn't. So I think what happened is the gear got jammed in here, so I was able to get it off. Was not easy, but we're going to go ahead and pull this shroud back off and check the gear inside. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to plug in the motor alone and do the mirrors in and out and see if the motor still works, because the motor did work before, but maybe somewhere along the motor got mad and doesn't want to work anymore. So let's make sure the motor still works, and then we'll move on from there. All right, motor in. All right, well, looks like the motor's working. Let's try motor out. Perfect. All right, so good news, bad news. I know the motor still works, the wiring still works, everything over there is good, so I'm pretty sure that the gear is getting messed up in here somewhere, which I don't know. I guess we'll take it back apart, see what we see. You know, when you keep doing something over and over again, you seem to get better at it. Here you go. All right, let's see what's unhappy. So this is still working, and kind of move all this stuff over, put everything back in the order it goes in. Got this little hat here. And it comes off like that. At least now I can show you how it goes together. I'm going to take it apart. And then this is what houses the gear. So let's see what's going on with the gear. Just what I thought. Everything seems fine. Alright, so we just tried this with pushing the button in and out. It does work. The motor goes a lot longer than the mirror needs, but I'm assuming once it hits that detent at the end, it stops. It kind of overpowers the motor. It tells it to stop turning. But it did go all the way in and all the way out, and this sucker spun all the way in and all the way out. So this is not the problem. It's got to be something between this gear and that gear. Maybe it wasn't seated down correctly, so let's put the whole thing back together, and then I'm going to try it again, but without mounting it down, just in case. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I'll be right back. I didn't want to get this good at this, but I got something I have to show you. So, in doing some research, I found that there's a reason that the original gear was plastic and these replacements are brass. And the reason is that if you look at this gear here, it actually grounds out the motor. That's what some people have said. So, we're going to go ahead and pop that out. And I went ahead and got an original replacement with the plastic on it, just like the original. So we're going to put that in here, put the whole thing back together, and hope that works. Now there are differences in these gears too. This plastic one is a lot wider, where the metal one is a lot skinnier, so that may allow for it to work better. I don't know. But we're going to put it back in here. We're going to make sure that we don't have any clearance issues, and we're going to grease it well. Alright, got this unit back together. I did put the top on, kind of holds the motor in, and also these pins kind of holds it all together. But I'm just going to plug this in, and we're going to watch this, and if this rotates the right direction, in and out, then we should be good to put it all back together. Alright, so here's the test. Alright, that would be in. Let's try out. Perfect. I think we're in good shape. Let's put it back together. Now putting it back together is just feeding all the wires through here, making sure nothing is getting tangled or messed up, and then bolting it on. I'm sure they had this taped up when they did it in the factory to make it easier, but we don't do things the easy way here. Once all the wires are through, remember this only locks on one way, which is that way, and it is in the up position, so that's good. So we'll get the screws and put those in. And there are 4 screws here. Now I think I'm going to put them on loose and test it again just to make sure, because last time it got stuck in a position I had trouble pulling the screws out. But I do want to make sure that it's still working, because this doesn't move, this moves. So we're just gonna double check. So now before we can go any further, we need to re-crimp these. You can see how far out this is in the sides as well. So I'm gonna use the channel locks on the side and just kind of pull it back in. It should hopefully be enough for this thing to seat itself. And then I'll just tap the end in here. Flatten that out. Front looks pretty good. And now we're ready to slide this piece over it. So we basically just have to feed all the wires through here, except the motor wire, which is going to stay in here. And once all the wires come through here, nice and easy, I'm going to sit this down, and these 3 pinholes are going to go right where they were. So they do have splines on them, and that'll line up here, hopefully. And we'll tap that in gently, and we should be good to go. Well, looks like this one goes flush with the outside. These 2 stick out a little bit. So just make sure they're okay. And because I am so paranoid, I'm going to try it again just to make sure. Beautiful. Now, all of these wires are okay to be out, except this one has to go through here and come out this little hole here. And I did take a picture of that if I forgot, but I didn't forget. So we can go on to the next step. So this is going to be the next piece, which is the front shell housing. And it does have clicks here, and it's got the slots here for this. So it's basically going to kind of push in this way. And then click in on the front here. And now your motor is going to go back on. First, want to plug it in, because if you forget to plug it in, you're going to have problems. That clicks right in. And then this has these 4 pins, so we just have to line this up the right way, which is what way? I don't know. This way, maybe? Maybe this way. The mirror came off up, so I believe it's going to go this way. Yep, there we go. So make sure these tongs are pointing up, and we'll put these screws in, which I can't do without looking at it, so you're going to have to wait. Okay. Now for the mirror, these 3 wires come through. Now if you don't have this wire, this is the built-in turn signal. So if you don't have the built-in turn signal, you will not have this wire, or you'll have it, but you don't have to worry about using it. And this is keyed, so it'll only go in one way, which is good, so we don't forget. And that'll just click into place here, like that. And then these 2 are for the defrost. So again, if you don't have defrost, then you might not have these. But if you do, go ahead and plug them in. And then these 4 tangs here just go right into these 4 here, and it'll lock down in there. I'm going to watch from the back, try and line it up better. There we go. Nice solid click. And then the last piece is your cover. Now the last thing you should have is your puddle light. Again, if you don't have a puddle light, then don't worry about it. If you do, it just goes in and a little twist, quarter twist, and you're good. And if you did take these 2 apart separately, you don't have to. You can take them off as one unit. This has a click here and here, and around the top here, this in the front. So just basically pops right on, slides right in. Watch your wires. Everything is good. And that's it. Let's do a final test of everything. Make sure the mirror works, make sure the lights work, make sure it folds. We'll be good. Mirror operation. Check. Turn signal. Check. Auto fold. Check. And everything works fine. So, moral of the story is don't use the brass gear. If you are going to use the brass gear, you have to use a stronger motor or a different motor that's isolated. There are companies that sell that type of thing, but I will put a link down below for the gear that I ended up using. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, check out some of the channels down below. And until next time, stay positive and keep on wrenching.